Welcome to the talk show Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields in academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. Actor, director, and producer Charles Mattocks is today's guest. Charles will talk about his experiences in the entertainment industry. He will also talk about his work with the International Diabetes Association.
Welcome to another episode of Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. Our show is all about sharing the experiences of incredible people. We hope these stories resonate with you and even nudge you to make positive changes in your own life. Perhaps you know someone who could benefit from hearing today's story, someone who's facing challenges and needs a reminder that they're not alone in pursuing their dreams. Today's guest, Charles Mattocks, has an incredible story about his experiences in acting, producing, directing, and also how he gives back in a big way. Let's bring him on. Charles Mattocks, welcome to Life Stories with Marc Hoberman.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me, brother.
It's a pleasure. Charles, tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Wow. Well, that's an interesting one. No, I grew up born in Brooklyn, raised in Long Island, and it was a nice childhood. It was Long Island was a great place to grow up, as it was very diverse. You know, I think I was probably one of the only, a few Black people at first when we moved to Long Island, and but it prepared me for. Long Island is really such a diverse place that it prepares you for the rest of life, but it was fun. It was, I had a really good childhood,
Did you aspire as a young person to be doing what you're doing today?
It hit, probably when I went to my uncle's funeral, which was, Bob Marley. And so when I went to his funeral, and then when I got home, it kind of hit as far as, who he really was and the legacy that he was leaving. And then, so I knew I wanted to do something, didn't know what it was, but then it really kind of hit when I think I was watching Video Music Box back in the day. That's like, I'm dating myself now. Yeah. And I saw LL Cool J's video. I think it was I'm Bad and I Need Love. And I was like, wow, I had no idea that somebody could live like this, and that kind of inspired me to go and find him. So LL probably lived about 35 minutes from me, from Long Island to Queens, and got my little car that I had just bought working at the deli, and ended up finding him. After knocking on his grandmother's door a few times and her running me away. And I just was tenacious and came back. And one day he was headed into a limo and headed to Europe on tour. And I went and grabbed my little piece of paper and started rapping my raps to him. And he said, hey, I like it, man. He said, come back and check me. So, I stayed on top of it and ended up being really good friends with him and kind of living with him a little bit and making music and that kind of opened me up into really to the world of music,
Well, that really shows tenacity in that you went uninvited and, respectfully though, and went and did your thing. That's incredible. Got to circle back because you can't just name drop Bob Marley without having me getting a little bit deeper into how did his persona affect your life or the life of your family?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I really don't bring that up because, I like him, he didn't, Bob didn't have any famous family members to say, hey, you know what, this is, can I get a door open because of this? He had to do it on his own. And I kind of feel that, if he was alive today, he'd be very proud because I haven't used that name to really open up doors. But I mean, obviously people, want to know about it and things like that. So we share it. But I think it was really about, once again, he was here for a mission. Like he once said, if this life is just for me, I don't want it. Ooh. And look at the impact that he made as far as his service to other people and really living for other people and really having a mission. It's kind of like, what I'm doing now, which really is about a mission and it's purpose driven. So I think I took more of that side of what he is, as far as his, humanitarian side and wanting to leave a legacy and leave a mark and really touch other people's lives. So that's what I took from him, not, the any other thing. And I think that's probably his greatest asset. Of course, his music was unbelievable, but I think what made his overall aura was the music, but then also what he stood for.
Oh, for sure. People
Yeah.
often just see the glitz and the glamour. They just don't know all those other things are being done. So it's great that you're talking about that now. So
Sure.
we can fast forward a little bit into how you got your first big break in this great big business we call Hollywood and entertainment.
Well, like I said, man, I was, growing up in New York, it's you got to hustle,
Oh, yeah.
and it's interesting. I remember walking by a movie set one day and I was like, man, and I asked him, it was in Manhattan, and I asked probably one of the gaffers or the grips, and I'm like, how do you get in this? And he kind of just brushed me off. Well, you got to have an agent or something like that. And I was like, but how it really started was I had a manager. Her name was Angela Thomas, and she was really, really well known, very big in the music industry in New York. And I remember bringing her. I was with E Love, who was LL's DJ, and I brought her. He took me up there to see her, and I gave her my CD. And she said, "Oh yeah, let me take a listen to it or whatever." And we were sitting in front of CBS one day because she worked at CBS, and I remember seeing her. She was walking in. I'm like, "Hey, Angela, did you listen?" She was like, "Oh, do you have another one?" And I'm like, "Oh man!" So I gave her literally, Mark. I gave her a blank one because I'm like, "Man, I'm not wasting another CD on you." So literally, probably 2 weeks later, she called me back and said, I played this for Russell Simmons. Now, Russell Simmons was, the owner of Def Jam. Rick Rubin worked with the biggest, everything from Public Enemy, LL, you name it, Beastie Boys. And she said, yeah, Russell loved it and wants to give you a deal. I'm like, wow. So that kind of started me and her really working together. But then I just had my son. And my dream was to be on Sesame Street. And so I said, hey, you know what? Ange, I would love to be on Sesame Street. So she was like, all right, well, I know an agent is a good friend of mine. And he was at CAA, which is, one of the biggest, talent agencies in the world. So she brought me up there, and that kind of, and they were like, well, we'd love to work with you. But, their job isn't to just try to get you on Sesame Street, so they started sending me on auditions. I didn't know what an audition was or what sides were. They used to call me Mark and be like, come pick up your sides. And I'm like, sides? What's a side? So I would do these auditions, and I just started booking these roles, and I guess it was the naivety of the newness of someone who, really didn't know what they were doing, but had a little bit of talent or came across at least with a great personality in reading these roles. But and not to keep talking, but I think that the real change came when I used to audition for Deborah Aquila. Deborah Aquila is probably one of the biggest casting directors in the world, right? And she cast everything from Gladiator to you name it. And I remember going there one day, Mark, and I was horrible because I didn't study, and it was for really good roles. I mean, like, really good roles that could change your life. And I remember being in the room with her, and I was just terrible. And she was like, well, try it again, Charles, try it again. And I kept trying, and I'm like, oh my God. And I remember I went home and I was like, I've got to take this serious. These are things that could really change my life. And this opportunity, can't be wasted. So I said, you know what? From now on, I'm going to study these parts. I'm going to learn these roles. I'm going to learn my lines, and I'm going to go in there prepared. So we had another audition with her. And this was for the film Daybreak with Cuba Gooding Jr., Maura Kelly, Omar Epps, a lot of big names. And I went in there, it was just a little dark room with a light, and literally brought her to tears. that was really the start of me taking that side of things serious. And we just started going. I just started going from there, and started booking some really big roles.
Right. Well, that's an excellent transition from being a kid playing the football, but then you are kind of an anomaly, because some people will see LL Cool J on the screen as a young person, as you did, and say, "Well, that was cool," and that's the end of it. They'll walk by a place where they're shooting something and say, "Wow, that looks really great," and they'll walk over. You keep seeing it and you see it and say, "How do I do that? I want to do that." And you ask questions, and being inquisitive seems to have really worked for you. And now we fast forward, and you wear a lot of hats, a lot of monikers: actor, director, producer. So which one of those really resonate most with you?
I would say more executive producer. And I say that because I wear the director hat because sometimes you gotta wear all the hats. But especially with the projects that we've been doing, these aren't projects that are just no project, to be honest with you, is easy to get off the ground. If everybody could do it, there'd be a whole lot more TV shows, there'd be a whole lot more people making films and television shows and so on and so forth. But especially in the fact that the films that we're making and the shows that we're making on health, where I'm trying to do something in an industry that doesn't want to see people healthy. So making a show on diabetes or on rare disease or on, heart disease or cancer, this is a business that, especially when you talk about, healthcare, it focuses on the sick. There's money in the sick. There's no money in the healing, So when you knock on the door and you have this great idea and you're like, listen, I want to make this show on whatever the topic may be, heart disease. And you're like, wow, we should be able to go and touch, knock on some of these pharmaceutical companies or healthcare companies, and they should, write us a big check, and we should be, riding off into the wind. We started working on a series on menopause, and I'm like, man, there's millions of women who suffer with menopause, and we put together some great names and some celebrity names, and you're like, this should be a no-brainer, Mark. And then you're like, wow. There's a reason why we don't see any information on menopause, right? I mean, why don't we? Considering that, executive women in executive positions and CEOs are dealing with menopause, there are women who are dealing with that, or their wives might be dealing with it, but there's little to no advocacy for menopause, right? There's little to no advocacy right now for diabetes. There's little to no advocacy for prostate cancer or colon cancer. And what you do see is companies that are looking to benefit off of those people who have those conditions. So it kind of, you're kind of fighting that monster, fighting that mountain. So I think it's very rewarding, because once you get there and you're like, wow, you know what, I didn't give up. I kept fighting, and we ended up connecting with, the right ones who saw the vision and believed in what we're doing, and being able to connect those dots. And Mark, I tell you, there's no dot that I don't connect, and I think really strategically and open up a lot of doors that can be opened. So even on this new project that we're working on right now called Reverse the Church, which is a monster of a series, it's going into a mega church to change the health of a whole congregation, right? And we've got Marvin Sapp attached, gospel great Marvin Sapp, using his church. We've got Tammy Franklin, Kirk Franklin's wife, one of the top, probably 3 gospel artists in the world. We've got Kenny Lattimore and his wife attached. We've got Claudia Jordan from Fox Soul. So but then you kind of sort through, at times even who they may know, right? Because they know some major people. And with this particular series, since we own all of our shows, we just deal with network from a standpoint of, let's say, buying the time, right? Instead of having a network own the project, because if a network books $5 into your project, they want ownership, right? So I'd rather raise $10 million and, come out of my pocket, for whatever the production cost is, and keep the majority of that $10 million instead of, having a network pay me $1 million and they made $50 million. So, this is a really, really powerful project. So we're going about opening those doors in ways where it's literally just every opportunity, every door that can be open, whether it's from political, whether it's a doctor who may know someone. So the hustle is real, and I leave no stone unturned.
Well, this is so powerful because, to be honest, you're an entertainer and you're into entertainment business, and menopause and diabetes and some of these things are anything but entertaining. So the fact that you've taken this on and you've taken it on so successfully is a huge deal, because I want to ask you about your connection with the International Diabetes Association.
Yeah. They made me a Blue Circle champion, and I did some work with them. Went out to Australia doing some stuff with them, and I think they're doing good work. Mark, I really stay away from associations, and because nonprofit means full profit. You know what I mean? You have a lot of these nonprofits that have CEOs making $1 million.
Yep.
I'm published author with the ADA, American Diabetes Association. Used to do work with them, and I would go to these events, and I would barely see people who had diabetes there. It was all about the $500,000 booths and the $1 million booths that these companies are spending, that are interactive and have screens and all of this kind of stuff like that to push their new products. And I remember one time, and I can't even make this up, seeing McDonald's as a sponsor at the ADA. And I'm like, listen, these folks are, and even now, if you look at the information that they put out there, Mark, it's horrible for people with diabetes. I mean, they're all about the big corporations, the big business, and putting out a food pyramid that was made by big pharma and cigarette and tobacco companies. It's terrible. I mean, some of the recipes that they have that are full of carbs, starch, and sugar. People call them out, but once again, it's a big business. I think they raised over $118 million a few years ago for the organization. So I kind of do my thing and just keep doing my thing for the people. And, I think we're very close, especially with this new series, to be able to make change, right? Because if we're able to bring eyes using this series on these conditions, but then be able to talk about these conditions and get on some major platforms and news organizations and say, hey, why are these companies who make hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, not putting more information out? Why is there no information out right now on diabetes? Even if it's just awareness about testing. The other day, I posted something on LinkedIn, and one of the doctors reached out because I created the first ever RV testing unit and for diabetes and amputation and wound care. And he said, Charles, this should be mandatory around the country. A testing unit for diabetes and information about wound care, right? And you see the big red bus that collects blood. Of course, thank goodness for that, because there are people who need the blood. But there should also be, with the millions of people that are dealing with diabetes and the fact that it's taken lives. I think it's the third or fourth highest killer in the country as far as the lives that it's taken. So there should be more information on it. And if the pharmaceutical companies and really the ad agencies saw it like that, there could be a lot of change. And, we fight with ad agencies too, because if, the pharmaceutical company may have upwards of $150 million to market, one drug. And now they give that to an ad agency. The ad agency is taking a nice chunk of that money. They come up with their own little programs where they're going to spend their money, and it's based on numbers at times, right? So it's based on, we'll give Fox some of this, we'll give NBC some of this, we'll give Oprah Winfrey's magazine some of this. We look at some of the numbers, Mark, and digital advertising in health has surpassed 2019, 2023 at $5.7 billion. So when you think about just digital advertising, so when you think about the billions that are being spent just in digital advertising, but we see little to no advocacy, we see little to no information on this. So if we create enough of a wave, it will have to change. It will have, I want to come stomping down the door with this television series and really be able to put a spotlight on some of this and say, where is this money going? And hopefully that will at least create some change.
This resonates so much with me because the reason why I have this show, and I've done 80 episodes for this show, 60 for my first podcast, all started from me being diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 16 and a half. It was genetics. My mother's uncle had epilepsy, and I didn't tell anybody till my memoir came out when I was 54. Diagnosed at 16, didn't tell anybody. 9 people knew, 6 of those were doctors. And why I'm telling you this is because my family gives the gift that keeps on giving. So I got the epilepsy, and then about 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with diabetes, which I've never said on the show. Not ashamed of it, just that it never came up. And quite honestly, because of how I worked through the diabetes, how horrible it was, the epilepsy in the beginning, how hard it was emotionally, anything else that I've come up against in life has paled in comparison because I'm so well prepared emotionally to deal with these things. And I have to tell you, and this question is kind of a double-edged sword because there's entertainment and there's also what you want to do medically, so to speak. But on my show, Charles, we often talk about the story behind the glory. So what struggles did you have to overcome to start to find success and get that ball rolling for Charles Mattocks?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been, I wish I was, sometimes I say, Mark, I wish I was blonde hair, blue eyed with a nice rack, right? Because this journey is fraught with hard work and denial. But it like I said, I think even when we were approved for our first series from Discovery, Mark, I literally locked myself away probably for 3-4 weeks, calling and reaching out to every company in the business of healthcare, and everyone. Companies who you would think, wow, you know what? I mean, this is a diabetes company, or this is a testing company, or this is, there's no way they're going to say no. And no one showed any interest. And then I got lucky just by a lady connecting me to Mankind, which is the inhaled insulin by Afrezza. And he believed in the project, and that's how we were able to fund that first project. We have had some great luck from other companies too as well. But it's definitely a lot of, and once again, it's saddening because you look at the people who are suffering. And, we're working on another documentary right now on complex regional pain syndrome, CRPS. And, Mark, we created a beautiful documentary a few years ago that won awards around the world. It's now going on Amazon Prime. It's been seen in over 25 countries. Even till now, we get messages every day with people saying, hey, you know what? Wow, thank you for this. You told our story. You helped us. And to get a few dollars to try to fund this, where you look at rare disease that's making billions of dollars, you look at the pain industry, where you have hundreds of millions of people who are dealing with pain. They're making billions and billions of dollars, and the few dollars we're trying to make to tell another story it's like pulling teeth. So of course, getting into acting and things like that, you're going to have your yes and no's as far as, you may go in there and think you read this line better than Denzel and get no. But as far as this side of things, it's definitely been hard. I think that, Mark, there are a lot of people who have jobs, and they may make, a decent amount of money at that job, but they don't take any risks. They're not there to push the envelope. They're literally just there to get a paycheck. So when you look at a lot of these people who are in pharma, let's just say pharma company or healthcare company, and you say, okay, they've got this position called head of this and vice president of that. You look at some of these companies, Mark, there's 500 vice presidents of something, 1,000 presidents of this in one company, and you reach out to these people and you say, hey, listen, this is who I am. I'm working on something. I'd love to work with your company. And they say, you know what? They have no clue of who to talk to over there. They don't talk to that person. They can't give, and you're like, but hold on, you're dealing with, let's say, diabetes or prostate cancer. You got to know somebody in the company that you can send this your way and take a little passion in what we're doing. But they really don't. They're just filling a seat, Mark. And I've worked with people, I'm not knocking anything, but I've worked with people on diabetes campaigns. And Mark, you will see them go from job to job. You'll reach back out 6 months later. They're no longer at their company. They're working on from diabetes to HIV. Then they go from HIV to sickle cell. Then from sickle cell to some other condition. So they're not doing this from passion. They're doing this just to pay a job. So when you come from it from a passion perspective of trying to help, that really doesn't fall in line with this model of us making money. But even though they do spend money on advertising and media and things like that. So it's a really a tricky line that you have to walk to try to get where you have to get. But it's a beautiful line because once again, we're changing lives and we're doing some great work. And when you hear the stories, when you hear the people who are reaching out, it was all worth it. And trust me, we've had some amazing successes too. But, I wish it was easier because there's a lot more I'd love to do.
I'm sure. I have no doubt that anything you want to do will get done. So just in closing, Charles Mattocks, thank you for being today's guest and sharing your impactful journey with us. But a special thank you for enhancing and improving the lives of others through information. So I just love that. I just want to say for all those viewers watching, I hope Charles's incredible journey has shown you that following your passion and helping others is essential in life. Remember, you have the power to make positive change in your own life as well as the life of others. We love to hear from you, so stay connected with us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. Don't forget to follow us for the latest episode updates and exciting new content. Charles, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. To contact Marc, email him at info@lifestorieswithmarchoberman.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman.